over it. Anyway, so we got like 10 minutes in, and then she found on her phone, she's like, Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor. I'm like, that's got to be a prediction. It doesn't start for another 15 minutes. Letterbox is probably somebody's prediction or something like that. And then I'm like, and then I looked at my phone because I was fucking with my cards at the same time. So I was away from my phone. Then I looked at my phone and I saw you guys chatting, and I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm late to the one award show I care about. But either way, didn't they were slow to start. So it wasn't really missing much.
Right.
At least from what I can tell. But no Joe today to recap the 97th Academy Awards. That is a shame. Definitely miss him, but there is no shortage of stuff to talk about with this year's Oscars. 19, I'm just looking at the numbers here. It's actually the first time I've seen them. 19.7 million was the ratings for this year. Somehow up from last year. Last year's was 19.5. And then you look at the year before that, it was 18.7. I'm kind of shocked that it was higher. It was more watched this year because last year you had Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I don't feel like you had a movie that like a huge mainstream hit of the best picture nominees that really stood out. I mean, you had Wicked, which was huge, but you didn't have like that Barbie Oppenheimer combo
Right.
either. So kind of interesting to see. Kind of interesting to see the numbers on that and how that played out. But it is great to see you kind of starting a little discombobulated, a little all over the
Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski. Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski. Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time, aided by some additional daylight. This was a good daylight savings time on Sunday. Get some extra light in the evening hours, which is really nice. It's nice not to do the show in total darkness like in the last 6 months. Good to be with you guys, though, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Again, every Wednesday night, we come to you live and in living color to talk movies for a solid hour or two. Last week, it was just Dom and I, a little belated, too. Had a day-long road trip that day, a week ago today. So, it's good to be back at a regularly scheduled time here today, and we're going to need every minute of the show to talk about Mickey 17, Bong Joon-ho's latest movie, which I saw on Monday, but it's very fresh in my mind because one circumstance to another, we saw Last Breath. Catherine and I saw Last Breath yesterday, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write my review of A Real Pain and Last Breath yesterday, and then today, before the show, I'll write my review of Mickey 17, so it's fresh in my mind. So that's what I did today. Doesn't really work out that way most cases, but this week worked out swimmingly. So I'm excited to talk about Bong Joon-ho's first movie since 2019's Parasite. And there's a lot of Bong Joon-ho's actually got a little bit of a presence on this show too. We've talked a couple of his movies, 3 of his movies, I believe, on this very show. So I'm excited to talk about this one to make it actually the trifecta. We got Joe back with a great T-shirt. Was commenting on that earlier. Great T-shirt right there. I think the only way that could be better is if it was a Scorpion King hoodie.
I remember you guys talking about that so much when that movie came out, and I was like, I get it.
I love movie merch. I love random movie merch. One of my favorite things to kill time is to go on eBay. This is just a little tip. Think of any movie, whatever first movie that comes to your mind, and go to eBay, type in the movie, and type in promo, and then see what kind of promotional gear pops up. That's one of my favorite things to do. And it's also why I've acquired quite a bit of crap. I have everything from a Kangaroo Jack promotional plush doll to what else do I have? A Logan Lucky hat, but that was from Cinemark. Just a bunch of random shit that litters my apartment over here. But Joe,
Oh,
how are you?
dude, you're absolute. The
What
theory checks out. Hold on, let me put this in the Zoom chat.
what did you find?
Oh, should I put it in the Zoom chat or should I put it in the regular chat? Okay, let
Why
me
don't
put
you
it in the
just
Zoom chat. There you go. It's the link to the image. Sorry, that was not helpful, but it's Willy Wonka movie vintage promo ad poster. This is the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka.
okay?
And it's like golden ticket. You could win one of five prizes. And it's like if you get a certain candy, you could you could win a trip to Europe.
It's cool stuff like that. I like looking at like trying to find hats or shirts or hoodies or something like that. Sometimes, movie merch can be like related. Like there's one thing, it's completely worthless, but I want it. At the premiere of Casino, the Martin Scorsese movies, they gave out poker chips that said casino on them. I want one of those.
Oh.
For no other reason other than like just a thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of random stuff that you can find. For the monkey, actually, too. This really wasn't. I guess it was a promotional thing because it was for the screening. The promotional junket or press junket that was given out that gave you all the descriptions of the movies and like the cast description and everything was structured like a celebration of life for the uncle played by Oz Perkins,
Okay.
like one of those funeral like booklets that you get and stuff like that. So there's super cool shit. Highly recommend. Look up think of any movie, type in promo, look it up on eBay. It's a good way to pass time.
I
Joe,
like it.
finally, I ask you again after I interrupted you. How are you?
Mm.
Did you catch it at a screening? Tip of the cap. How about you, Dom?
For me, just enjoying the good weather and trying to make the most of my time off. But then that leaves me busy for other things. You know how like you get like that one day off from work and it's like, oh, well, I've been pushing everything off to that day and then it just piles up. You gotta make room. You gotta do chores and things during your actual work week, which sucks. But I don't know, put on a good podcast while you're at it.
Laundry. That's
Yeah,
the first thing I think of.
it's
Real
one of the
quick,
big ones.
real quick, Catherine, hand me this before we get started. I probably should just take
Oh
the
my
background away.
God.
The monkey popcorn bucket. We finally got a shout out to our boy David at AMC. Saved it for us. Bought it
That's
himself and saved
awesome.
it for us. They only got 8, 7 or 8, something like that. So he put it aside for us. By the time we went there, we were going to be out of town that weekend. We went on Thursday, the day the movie came out, after we got off of work at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. We weren't going to see the movie, but we were going to get one of these. And they were already sold out. And they put them up for sale on that Thursday. And they were already sold out. And then when we left, our buddy David messaged me on Instagram. He goes, "Don't worry, I got it for you guys." Like, so this thing is sweet. This thing is
Nice.
really sweet. It says the monkey on the bottom. You can't really see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There you go. You got the monkey on the bottom. Yeah, this thing is dope. Did you see any when you went to go see this, Joe? Did you see this at an AMC? Man, these are a rarity up here in Dubuque. You still got them over by you though. Lucky you. You need to pick one of these. You're so lucky on that. I'm waiting with bated breath for my hat. I cannot believe you found another one. So thank you for that. If you do come across, I will say I did look at them again. I doubt you will. But if you do come across the popcorn hoodie, if you buy that, I will comp you for that too. The pants, I looked at the pants. The thing with the pants, the Colonel's is the hoodie, yes. The popcorn pants, which sounds really weird to say, but the Colonel pants, I don't want those because they're joggers and they cup on the ankles. They have like the cup sleeve on the ankles where they like grip to your I don't like that shit. I don't like that. I like this. I like scrunch. I like my sweatpants. You know, I'm a big sweatpants guy. You both know this. I like the scrunchy end. I don't like the like
I do know
tube
that.
sock
Yeah.
style ending. I don't. Joggers are very uncomfortable, from in my opinion. But man, no, the swag I am gonna have with that hat. Thank you so much for picking that up. I cannot wait. I can't wait for that. I'm gonna wear it to the theater. The next when we get it, the next movie we go to, I will wear it. Um, but anyway, we're going to talk Mickey 17, the new Bong Joon-ho movie. It's been a while since we got in a Bong hit. I'll say that. Parasite was back in 2019. We reviewed it on the show in 2020. And that movie, I mean, first things first, I think it was a good thing that Bong Joon-ho took a decent amount of time between Parasite and his next movie. I don't know if he planned it that way, but that's kind of how circumstances arose. So I'm very proud of myself. I don't think, 5 years ago, if let's say Parasite came out in 2015, I don't think I would have done this 5 years ago. But I will say this. I went into this movie without Parasite in my mind entirely. Bong Joon-ho is one of those directors that everything he does is stylistically similar, thematically similar for sure. And we'll get to
Hmm.
that about this one. Um, I did not want to think about Parasite at all watching this movie, because from the trailers, even when I just knew the plot of it years ago to the trailers, this movie is so radically different than Parasite. And expecting another Parasite is just setting yourself up for failure. Bong Joon-ho, though, the South Korean auteur, is back with Mickey 17. This is based off of a book called Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. And this is also, for what it's worth,
Should be 10
Bong's.
times better.
Yes, indeed. It's also Bong's third English language movie, too. Because Parasite was in Korean. A lot of his movies are in Korean.
Snowpiercer. Yeah.
Snowpiercer, Okja, and this one. Which is funny because this movie has a lot in common with Snowpiercer and Okja. The third act of this movie is almost kind of a spiritual successor to Okja, which we did talk about on the show back in the radio days. I really like that movie a lot. I think that movie is kind of become one of his more like unsung movies, which is weird because it's on Netflix. You know what I mean? Like Snowpiercer, I feel like Snowpiercer, it was always pretty popular, at least amongst the film community, and then the show came out, and now people are still like Snowpiercer's still kind of in the public, perception. I feel like Okja though has kind of gotten by the wayside. But this movie though, this one's got Robert Pattinson in it. Basically, I'll try to give a brief plot overview before I turn it over to you guys. Essentially, and this thing is kind of a doozy to sum up, but essentially, it takes place in 2054 on an ice planet. We revolve around Mickey Barnes, who's played by Robert Pattinson. In this world, he is signed up to be an expendable, which means he's kind of a lab rat. So he tests different vaccines, different air toxins, different equipment and stuff. He's basically a colonialist crash test dummy in so many ways. And when he dies, he doesn't have to operate with fear of dying because he gets brought back into, he gets printed again and essentially picks up where he left off. He's got all his memories intact and everything. So we meet him when he's the 17th version of himself, Mickey 17, seemingly left for dead. So the scientists back at the lab print another Mickey, Mickey 18, also played by Robert Pattinson. Well, then Mickey 17 shows up perfectly alive, and now these two Mickeys coexist in the same universe, which is very illegal in this universe, too. They're known as multiples. So we have that problem, and it also, Mickey 17 and Mickey 18 are radically different human beings, if you want to call them that. They're radically different people. Mickey 17 is more goofy, a little bit more spunky. Mickey 18 is like Robert Pattinson era, Twilight era. Very brooding, just a miserable bastard.
But like actually cool.
Cool though, yeah, definitely doesn't sparkle. But anyway, then, so there's that aspect of the movie. Then there's also these creatures known as creepers that look kind of like armadillo roly-polies in a way. They're really strange. They're kind of ugly, but at the same time, they're kind of cute. Like they're very weird looking creatures. I don't know if I should ruin it, but Toni Collette has the most perfect description for what these things look like. If you guys remember her line, has the most perfect description for that. Do I have to refresh?
Yeah.
She said they look like a croissant dipped in shit.
That's right.
That was probably my favorite line of the damn thing.
That's pretty good.
But the ruler of this, essentially the ruler, the emperor of this world, is a guy named Marshall. He's played by Mark Ruffalo, who's still like in Poor Things mode. And his wife is played by Toni Collette, and they wanna colonize these creepers and harvest their tails to make like this potent sauce, in so many words. So right off the bat with these, you have sort of the outline of a Bong Joon-ho movie. Authoritarianism, environmentalism, grand scale kind of epic filmmaking, commentary on being an individual in a society, things like that. That is really the cornucopia of Mickey 17, and there's a lot on which to chew. I wanted to give a plot overview so we didn't sound totally insane going over this thing or giving our opinions on this thing without context. So I'll pass it over to you, Joe. What say you about Mickey 17?
No, I'm glad you went into the same mindset that I had, which was this is not, I shouldn't go into this expecting the next Parasite because, Parasite definitely feels more of a film that like it was something he had to like say about the current conditions of South Korea and, the politics there and the wealth class there, tons of stuff he said throughout that movie. I looked at this as that like, hey, this is going to be another just like a movie like The Host or Okja or even Snowpiercer where it's like he's kind of making like a little bit of a blockbuster here, like, much more like sophisticated blockbuster and everything, but still a blockbuster because it has a big budget. It's got a wide range of top tier actors in it. And for that, I think Mickey 17 really does work. When you're coming to this movie for the performances, for the scale of the movie, it's like this sci-fi movie, and you get to go explore this world as well as like you get to see the cool technology that involves making these expendables, and eventually which leads into conflict as well. This movie I think nails all of that. Now I will say this, even though I'm not comparing this to Parasite, I think if you're coming here because you like the commentary that Bong Joon-ho has in his movies, and you like a lot of the things that Okja brings up, or even Snowpiercer, you might be a bit disappointed with this film. I kind of feel like this movie's a bit scattered in terms of like what it wants to say, and also the amount of characters it brings up. Because it's already enough we gotta deal with 2 Robert Pattinsons, let alone like a bunch of multiples of them. We have 17 of them technically throughout this film, but there's 2 on screen. But then you have his love interest, then you have another love interest, then you have Mark Ruffalo, then you have Toni Collette, then you have Steven Yeun, then you have an uprising happening with them, and then you have this happening, and it's just like the list goes on and on. That I just remember sitting in the theater and just kind of thinking to myself, when is the movie gonna start? When is Mickey 18 actually gonna show up? And this thing actually starts rolling. Because it's like, I get what you're saying throughout the first half of this movie. I get, like, yes, I get it. Mark Ruffalo is, you could look at him as a Trump figure. You can look at him as a Bush figure. You can look at him as those religious,
Mega
like
pastors.
mega church,
Yeah.
mega churches. Yeah, you can look at him as that. There's plenty of things you can associate that with. At least in our culture, I can't speak to any other culture. Like South Korea might have different looks at him that we, they saw within Parasite and everything. There's plenty to go there, but there, again, there's so much cutting back to the past, and then jumping back, and then cutting to the past, and it's something else, and it's just like, man, when stuff actually get established, and at times, I'm not saying I was bored, but I was getting frustrated with the movie because I was just kind of sitting there like, damn, I I'm really liking everything this movie wants to do. I just want it to actually start doing something. It like teases me with like an idea. Like when Mickey 17 and Mickey 18 first meet and they have like their first interaction, it's a really cool interaction. They both actually bring up like why this is like a bad thing and why, you know, what's immoral about this. And also just like the fact that's like, well, I have been alive longer than you have. Well, yeah, but I didn't get a chance to live my life and everything. It's like, you know, they kind of like have this little great back and forth. I'm like, okay, here we go. Things are rolling. And it's like immediately when I thought like, okay, we're going to explore maybe this whole thing about duplicates or not duplicates, multiples, as well as just the expendable program in general. Right when I thought like that's probably going to dive into this, uh it becomes a love triangle, not even a like a love square. It's just like I just kept sitting there like, man, every single time I think we're about to start rolling with something, the film actually pivots to a different thing. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. That's what Parasite did. Parasite became a whole different movie halfway through, but it worked still because it still kept on within that same theme of class separation and class, you know, warfare and everything. This, it's really strange to see like Bong Joon-ho, you know, kind of cover like similar topics he's covered in his past films, but not really fleshing them out as well as he had in those past films. I probably sound like I don't like the movie, and I don't want to sound like I want to reassure that I did. But I have been talking plenty enough, so I'm gonna pass it off to Dom, and then we can come back and I can talk about more of the positives I have with the movie.
There's a certain whimsy that Mickey 17 has that's very fun, that's very casual and lackadaisical, which matches with the theme. For me, the core of the concept, the core of the, I would even say the whole movie, although I need to watch it again to lock this in. But for me, the core is the theme of life and
Yeah.
how not beautiful it is, but rather how little we care about life as humans. And of course, that goes to many of Bong Joon-ho's previous themes about capitalism, about power structures, about the working class, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. And that's all well and good. But unfortunately, for me, this whimsy does not, it doesn't, or it, it does not translate well into the pace of this film. There's this for me. This probably didn't help that I had watched Snowpiercer like a couple weeks before, just because I was feeling it, right? I did not enjoy this movie all too much.
Oh
I
wow.
really
Okay.
didn't. Between between the over narration from Robert Pattinson's character, and it's not even the voice. I thought the voice was pretty damn funny, right? And it's like, oh, it's just him being like this the whole time. Ah, shucks. Oh, yeah, then I died.
It
And it's
adds
like
to
just the
him
way,
being kind of like yeah
yeah,
the loser that no one really cares about. Like his voice really
exactly.
does play
We
to
can
that.
all relate to that at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you left that behind in high school, but I'm sure
When
many
you
people
read,
can relate to that now in their adult years. It's Steve. Were you gonna say something?
not to cut you off, I was just gonna say when you read that he for his voices he struggled quite a bit to try to come up with dual voices. At one point
Hmm.
he tried to make Mickey 17, I was reading, he tried to make Mickey 17 sound like Steve-O.
Wow.
And Bong was like, "Don't do that, don't do that." But basically what Robert Pattinson said he did was he said basically I tried to imitate Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. And he did great. The All the actors are doing well. The All the actors with their given assignments are doing fantastic. I do think Mark, so another thing is the over narration, Mark Ruffalo's Trump caricature and other things. It's not 100% Trump, but it's like 70, 80% Trump. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, that's grating. So this is a sidebar related, but sidebar. I cannot take any more Trump impressions. I can't take it anymore.
It. I don't mean to
It's,
cut you off as well, but
yeah.
it's really becoming like it's something I don't look forward to in any movie
Yeah.
that wants to make a statement because it's like, oh no, you're really laying on thick with the voice, with like you know the
Hmm.
things he's doing. Because I think back to when I saw The Apprentice, and it's like, that's it. We don't need any more. Sebastian got it done. Like,
Yeah, but that was serious. That was
yeah,
like an honest to God. Well, I haven't seen the movie,
This
but
is
that
like
was a more honest to
caricature.
God.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, and Mark Ruffalo's performance of everything about this thing, and it's been very divisive this whole movie. Truthfully, I think the Rotten Tomato score is a little bit deceptively high, given the discourse I've
I think
seen
so
back and
too.
forth with
yeah.
this movie. Ruffalo's performance is all people's opinion on it's all over the map.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
because
agree.
and I guess it didn't bug me as much because of the fact that like I kind of saw it was almost a little bit of an extension of him in Poor Things. Like maybe if I
Yes, I
hadn't
can see that
seen
too.
that movie, like it would have rubbed me the wrong
Yeah.
way because he is
To
annoying.
me,
He's piss annoying, but like
yes.
I know that's in his wheelhouse. That's the way he can behave.
I know that's a direction thing. I don't think that's a Ruffalo thing at all. Um, or maybe just a little bit, but either way, that's mostly a direction and what to do with the character. It's like, I can't take this anymore. Please. I got tired of Trump impressions before Trump's first term ended, let alone now with his second term in 2025. But either way,
SNL doesn't help either. You
Yeah.
know
it
what I
does. It
mean?
really
It
does.
it really doesn't.
Yeah. But anyway, those are all details. The biggest problem I have with this movie is that it has no oomph behind it at all. It truly doesn't. Even when you get to the third act, right? When you get to the okay, things are popping off now. Suddenly death does matter. I'm getting attached to these characters. Even then, it's like it's too predictable, it's too on the nose. It's because one of the and yes, I will go back to Parasite, but one of the beautiful things about Parasite is how deep and complex it is, despite taking place in this one house with two families. That's it. That is prime storytelling. If you can navigate that, that is
Yeah.
masterful. Henceforth, why he won the Oscar. So many Oscars. But for Mickey 17, this feels like here's the critical thing. I have not seen Okja. My
Okay.
Bong Joon-ho rap sheet is Snowpiercer, Parasite, and Mickey 17. And I think I was set up for I not that it's my fault, but I think I set myself up for failure with that track.
You know what? No, but
Because
I think like
yeah,
if
yeah.
you would
Go
have
ahead, go
seen
ahead.
Oakjaw, you probably would have been like, why didn't like how are you able to tackle similar themes and everything in that movie, especially like kind of doing a satire as well with Oakjaw is a satire in some ways as well, like Mickey 17 is. And I think it just the way you're feeling, I think it would have made you even double down on it more. Like, what are
Okay.
you doing here?
Yeah.
I also think, and I think Oach is a better movie for the record.
I do too.
I think Oach is a better movie, but I also think here's the other component of Okja. Okja is a more contained world. Okja doesn't have to set up the ideas of the
Yep.
concept of the expendable for so long, and I think that's also part of this thing. Like what I loved about this movie, what I really loved about Mickey 17 was I never quite knew where it was going. The themes might be heavy-handed, but that's kind of Bong Joon-ho. That's kind of him in general. He's going to lay it on thick. I think it's a testament to his prowess as a director and a filmmaker that he can lay. Usually, not being subtle is a bad trait, but I think the way that he sort of conceives movies and the way that he looks at like building sets and creating an ensemble and everything that goes into it, I think, really works in harmony, even when he's using a sledgehammer as opposed to like a scalpel, when it comes to really, articulating his themes and ideas and stuff like that. But I think with this movie though, it's so weighty. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of for a movie, and this is the paradoxical element too. Like the more the world's explained, like through Pattinson's narration and everything, it almost feels like doing a lot of that kind of sacrificed a little bit of the world building in this
I
movie.
agree. I feel like you could have cut at least half of it out, if not more, right? Because that's look, I don't really know, but to me, it got on my nerve. And it also doesn't help that one of my absolute pet peeves is telling, not showing. And that doesn't mean I hate all narration, but to the extent that Mickey 17 was doing it in the first act, your critical
Yeah.
first act, in the first 45 minutes, son of a bitch, that was way too much. Like, and I'm trying to
It
bring
made
myself
me
down. It's
think
like,
like
yeah, yeah,
honestly, I'm like I think we could have had the events actually just play out in order, and
I
I
think
think
so
I'm
too.
like I think it would have actually had a better effect. I think the only time we really needed something to get a callback to, or like him like doing a narration, but like I wouldn't know how to integrate this back into the plot really, is when they actually did explain why they don't allow multiples, which was the only thing of like the
Yeah,
narration that
that
he
one
was
makes
doing.
sense.
Like that was the only thing in terms of like what do you call it? Oh my god, where it's like you're giving context to the world or whatever.
Exposition.
Exposition, yeah. Like
Oh,
if
okay.
you want to consider it exposition, or you want to whatever you want to consider it. It out of everything he was telling throughout the flashbacks and throughout the narration, I thought like, okay, that's actually interesting. Like, and actually seeing how the council reacts to that and everything, I was like, this is actually cool. Um, but yeah, man, no, everything else, like when he said it took 4 years to get to the ice planet, and like they're just kind of waiting around. By the end of the first act, I was like, shit, I almost feel like it's all actually been 4 years, but like I looked at my watch, I'm like, no, it's only been about 30 to 35 minutes.
Yeah. I it so far it's I almost feel like I want to give my star rating, but we'll build up to it. For me, so like I didn't even, not that I didn't care, but I know a lot of people were waiting for the the twist in the plot where both you have two Mickeys existing, the multiple situation, right, which
Mm-hmm.
was in the trailer, right? For me, that wasn't even the most interesting part. For me, it was, yeah, setting up this world I want to sink my teeth into, but we're not. We did get maybe we did get a lot of it, but for me, the lack of exploration in that world was very, I don't know. It just did not play out correctly for me. And correctly, obviously there's the subjectivity to it, but it wasn't connecting with me. And I I just wonder if it was just dragging its feet. This whole time, because I was concerned about this too, watching those trailers where it's like, okay, okay, this is a a great like setup for a message, which is very Bong Joon-ho. If you give this to another director, I would roll my eyes, but with Bong Joon-ho, it's like, okay, 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 sure. We need this message now. Honestly, I did wonder if like he did Parasite, his most like one of his most complex, I don't really know his full repertoire, but his one of his most complex, biting, balls to the walls films of the last decade, right? He did that, and it's like, the people will know my message. Trump gets elected a second time, and he's like, son of a bitch. Okay, I gotta really
I
dumb
really
this
gotta
down for
spell
you
it out for you.
motherfuckers. I gotta really lay it on thick, don't I? All right, here we go. We got over narration. We got a Trump parallel. We got all of this. And it's like, okay, this is what we. That's how I was trying to forgive it in my mind. It's like, okay, maybe the people really do need to, spoon fed to them, pre-chewed and spoon fed for them. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And we talked about extensively too. I remember Joe and I talked about it on the air too. That Okja lays it on thick, like very much so.
That wasn't me.
Okja's
That was you and Dom. I didn't review Oakjaw with you.
I didn't see Okja.
he
Did I
didn't
see
see
Okja?
Okja though. He didn't see Okja.
Did I
I
talk about it? No, maybe I did see it and I just didn't think about it. I didn't remember it.
I wasn't at North Central at that time.
It had to be you, D. It had to be you. The hell did I talk about it by myself? That could have been the case
Yeah,
too.
it's a 2017 movie, and it came out. It came out June of 2017. I started at North Central in September of
Okay.
2017.
That's right. That's right. I talked about it with somebody. I remember that. But
You brought Jake Gyllenhaal on there.
yeah, possibly. Maybe Kevin was
I don't
available that
remember
day.
this movie, honestly, and I feel bad because it's like a Bong Joon-ho. Maybe am I confusing it with like not Squid Games?
But
That's borderline
going
racist
back,
of me.
going back to it though, Okja though what laid it on really thick,
It did,
the
yeah.
environmentalist themes and everything, and Okja even brought the music into it very heavily as well. So like I feel like the term bleeding heart is used kind of as a pejorative and stuff like that. I feel like if you would call Bong Joon-ho that would be seen as a compliment to him. You know what I mean? Because he's somebody who's clearly empathetic. He's somebody who clearly like kind of tries to view the world through a prism, even through like things that aren't part of his immediate universe, which I do admire about him as well. And it does kind of feel like after the setup, which is about over an hour of like setting this up and explaining this world and the expendable concept, and then finally getting to like, the dictatorial aspect with Marshall and Yelfa, it feels like then it lays on the themes, and then it kind of becomes a little bit of a soft remake or a spiritual sequel to Okja in that way in the third
Yeah.
act, especially in the third act too, when they're kidnapped. So and kind of going off and saying though that like overall I did really enjoy this movie. I enjoyed it for its unpredictability and its concept, but I recognize though that this thing is like, it always feels like, and it sounds like it did for you, Dom. It does feel like this thing is at the point of like, it's like Jiffy Pop in a way. Like it's at the point where it's just about to burst. You know what I mean? Where it's just about to collapse under its own weight. But then you've got either the visual scheme, you've got Pattinson's dual performance, you've got Ruffalo and Colette, you've got Naomi Aki, who plays his girlfriend in the movie as well. You kind of got all these things sort of holding this movie together before it bursts at the seams and really becomes undone, at least the way I looked at it.
Yeah. I just like I just like how Mickey went from like, okay, dying 17, 18 times. That does suck. But then he was rewarded by being in a love square with two beautiful women, one of whom I genuinely thought was Anna de Armas for a second.
Dude,
it was like,
I was
Which
going
sucks 'cause
insane.
she's
I
getting-
thought
I
it
bet you
was.
she's
I was
getting
like,
that a
this.
lot.
I'm like, I didn't know Anna de Armas was in this movie.
between Naomi Aki and Anna Maria Vartolome, I'm assuming I said that right. It's like, damn, lucky bastard. Oh wait, maybe not.
I mean, technically, it was those two and Robert Pattinson, because Mickey 18, he could go both ways apparently.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
do
true.
like how we've just normalized the term for this movie, Love Square. That's fun. That's very fun.
The Love Diamond.
The Love
I
Diamond.
love
There you-
Diamond. Actually, yeah, that works better. Yeah, because you have the
That
points then.
That does, yeah, because then you have like a little bit of intersection there too.
Yeah.
I suppose we'll take a break here. I suppose we'll take a break for our Zoom-sponsored intermission, come back in about 60 to 90 seconds with more on Mickey 17. Again, if nothing else, this movie leaves us with a lot to talk about. It's probably our first divisive movie, too, of 2025, which I'm excited about, too. Because I said going into this, and I'll talk more about this coming up, I said this was probably going to be one of the more unique big-budget movies of the year,
Yeah.
which I guess in the current landscape of Hollywood is not really that hard to accomplish. You think of 9-figure tentpoles and stuff. It's mainly Marvel movies or franchise tentpoles. This is really the outlier of those movies this year. We got more to talk about with Mickey 17, though. We will be back here after our Zoom sponsored intermission in just a couple of minutes. Enjoy some very nice highlights composed by Joe for our Zoom sponsored intermission. We'll be back in just a couple on Sleepless with Steve. Suspect. We'll dive into it, though. Furiosa Mad Max Saga. It is a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road came out back in 2015. And I think us film nerds remember that very well. And it's funny, too, because it was like I had sort of the same mindset I remember going into that movie as I did Top Gun Maverick. I had not watched the Mad Max movies prior, but I watched the first three in the week leading up to Fury Road coming out in the theaters. And the first one I liked enough. The second one really captivated me, and then the third one was like a Return of the Jedi costume play. I wasn't blown away by the trilogy, though, I have to admit. I wasn't blown away by the original trilogy. Maybe watching it again down the road or whenever The Wasteland comes out, that might be something I do, but I'm not really sure on that either. But I remember going into Mad Max Fury Road with like, kind of like how I approach many blockbusters. I was talking to Catherine about this when we went to go see this. I said, like, it should tell you something that this is a blockbuster that I am friggin' stoked for, because that does not happen very often with me. Even as a critic, I approach these almost with a sense of obligation. Outside of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, some of the series that I really like and connect with. But when I saw Fury Road, I had this like, I hope it's good. I obviously hope every movie I watch is good. But I did not know what I was in for. And the marketing, if you remember, did a really good job of obscuring just how batshit that movie was.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Top Gun Maverick because I called Top Gun Maverick when I reviewed it. I said this is probably the singular best blockbuster made since Fury Road. And I approached them with like the same sense of apathy. Even Top Gun Maverick, I wasn't like jumping for joy to see. I was more like, I hope this is good. I hope this isn't like a sequel nonsense. And then about an hour into this, I remember thinking like, this might be 4 stars. This is great. And Mad Max Fury Road blew me away. Catherine hadn't seen it. We watched it again this last week technically, and she loved it too. And I think it holds up beautifully. I don't think it is a stretch of the imagination to say that is the singular best action movie of the last decade. You might argue The Raid, Redemption. You might argue some movies and whatnot, but I don't think I would trust a list that didn't have it in the top five. I think that it is top to bottom a stellar movie. And one of my more controversial opinions, you mentioned film Twitter hot takes earlier. One of my more controversial opinions, I think Fury Road is so fucking good top to bottom. I think it almost invalidates the previous movies. I think Fury Road is the movie, like, how many movies can you say got it perfect on the fourth try? And it felt like Miller had the budget, had the backing, had the cast, had the studio support, had the effects team, had everything to make the movie he always wanted to make.
Yeah.
And I think it's so good that you can skip the first three and enjoy it as the start of the series.
Yeah.
That's sort of my long-winded monologue to get into Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. Again, this is the prequel, 7-8 years in the making. And I think right now, too, George Miller's always been a top of the line filmmaker, but I think right now he is truly in a class all of his own. He has made now 2 stellar action movies in the last decade, in the last 10 years, rather, in Fury Road and Furiosa. Furiosa is the prequel to Fury Road, as I've said before. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy, who is probably in about half the movie because the bulk of the first half of the movie focuses on Furiosa when she's even younger. Back in better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve after our Zoom-sponsored intermission, kind of putting a bow a little bit on Mickey 17 here. We'll proceed to closing thoughts here in a few minutes, but I can't blame anybody who feels like they got lost in Mickey 17's sauce, so to speak. I really can't, because this is one of those movies that I don't want to say you're all in or all out, because I feel like I'm on the fence leaning more towards all in. But there is a lot to this movie, and I almost wonder, and it's kind of ironic because I don't watch a lot of TV shows, but like Snowpiercer got the TV treatment after it was a film adaptation. I almost wonder if Mickey 17 should have got the TV adaptation to be fully successful in its mission, and then maybe got the movie adaptation. Because I'm not familiar with Ashton's novel either, Mickey 7. I'm not familiar with that one.
I talked to someone who did read the novel, and he was interested in, he's like, oh, I wonder why he killed Mickey 10 more times. Like, are they going to go into that and go in more? And when the movie ended, I turned to her, I'm like, so did he do it? He's just like, no, he just killed him in funny way. he's just
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
that's it.
I get it. 17 sounds better anyway. But
It reminded me a little bit of Happy Death Day to You.
Yeah.
With the scene where Tree keeps dying and it's scored to Hard Times by Paramore. It kind of reminded me of that.
I will say, and he told me too, he's like, Mark Ruffalo's character, it's more of a religious zealot character than a political figure in terms of a presidency that you can associate it with and everything. He told me that. He also told me, like, they do go more into, like, the morale of, like, cloning people. And, like, there's even more of a... And I felt like the movie was kind of touching it at times, but just, frontline workers message, like, the book actually covers that a bit more too, and, like, comparing Mickey to, like, a frontline worker and everything, and that, like, he does all this stuff, like, no one really cares about him. Like, he's the guy that has to go out there and fix the ship. He's the guy that does all these things, but, like, it's everybody else is, like, it's apparently that dinner scene where he goes to dinner and, like, he gets, like, a raw piece of meat, and then the other person gets, like, a really, like, well done put together plate. Like, they further go into, like, more stuff like that and how he's treated on the ship.
Yeah, the unseen people of the world that make the world go round, ultimately. No, I like that. And it's easy to see on that basis alone. It's easy to see why Bong Joon-ho was attracted to something like this. Given it's right in his wheelhouse, everything from authoritarianism to environmentalism to sort of classism and class warfare and things like that. No, you really get the whole gambit of this too. The thing I really agree with you the most though, Dom, with this movie is that I do feel like you talked about you think it's over narration and stuff like that, being over narrated, and sort of getting in the way of the pacing. It's funny because even going back and reviewing this thing today, like I feel like, and I haven't felt this with a blockbuster of this caliber, in a while, but it does kind of feel like this thing's foundation is a little bit shaky overall, especially as it starts to get going. Especially as it starts to get going, whether it's a pacing issue or whether it's just a overdevelopment or lack thereof sort of issue. It does kind of feel like there's all this weight at the top of the movie that's like, the themes and the takeaways and everything. And it feels like the ground it's on is kind of unstable. And I feel like the world itself that Mickey inhabits, it maybe isn't as solidified as the themes it's trying to bring up. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we pivoting to our final
It's up to
thoughts?
you guys. Any other things you want to add?
I will say this, because I did say, like, I do want to talk about more of the positives, and Dom just basically took all the things that I also was not liking about the movie and everything and whatnot. And that's no dig at you, Dom. Like, I totally get why you feel the way you did. It's like I was feeling that way at points. I will say in terms of positives, I think for me the second half of the movie got significantly better, and it actually ended up winning me over by the end, where it was like, okay, this almost was, and this kind of does ruin what I might be giving this movie. This almost was a 2-star movie for me. But the second half was good enough that I'm like, okay, I'm willing to go up just a little bit more, and have it more on the positive side of things. It's mainly due to, I do think the two Mickey performances are great. I think Robert Pattinson kills it as that. I even think, like, even though they're not really given much development, I do think the acting from Steven Yeun and the two women interests is also really good too.
Oh,
They,
yeah.
like,
So sorry. Shout out to Steven Yeun. Excellent slime ball. He
oh
plays a
yeah,
great slime ball. Yeah. That's a
does.
fantastic role. Yeah.
there's a point where he puts on like that suit and he puts on like sunglasses and like he's trying to look all proper and it just still comes off as a slime.
Yeah.
um, and I do like the way they resolve everything by the end. I like the way they do reincorporate the alien life forms on the planet and how that's used to like kind of like um ultimately give a climax to the movie and everything. I even thought the little dream sequence at the end was kind of cool. I was like, okay, I kind of dig what you're doing here. I do wish they went into more stuff that they brought up. There's a whole thing about Mickey's past and about a red button, and they really don't go more into that. It's just there's a red button, he pushed it, something bad happened, I won't want to ruin it. And by the end of the movie, it's brought up again in a very subtle way that made me go, I kind of wish we explored something like that more with Mickey's character, because it's like what he does at the end of the movie, I'm just like, huh. I feel like this moment should mean more, especially because he's pushing another red button. It's just like I kind of like wish we got a little bit more out of that. But overall, for me, I guess I can just go into my final thought right now, unless you guys have stuff to add in.
I'm good. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Overall, for me, I was a little bit disappointed with it, especially within its first half. I thought the first act is a bit of a mess in terms of setting things up. And that really sucks to say, because I do think Bong Joon-ho did such an amazing job establishing a world in Snowpiercer and Oakjaw, where it's like, hey, like throughout the whole film, I felt like it was one vision the entire time. While here, because it's too scattered at the beginning and even a little bit throughout that first half, like bleeding into the second act, there are times I kind of just sat there going, I don't even know if Bong Joon-ho's actually directing this damn thing. It's not until the second half where stuff really starts to come together and everybody starts interacting. I'm like, okay, now it actually feels like a movie he made. But that first half was just going all over the place for me, that I was just like, man, this might be one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. Luckily, like I said, by the end, it turns itself around, that even though I'm giving it 2.5 out of 4 stars, I do think it's a strong 2.5 out of 4 stars. I think it does stick its landing, even though it has a very rocky, bumpy start to it.
I'll go and then I'll leave you closed, Dom, because I don't have a ton to add to that. I think I think Bong Joon-ho's propensity for style and also heavy-handed messaging are two things that like cannot be questioned. Um, Mickey 17 has had enough time to kind of incubate. He's been working on this now, I think, since 2021. And on one hand, it's a little curious that the world building and sort of the universe itself doesn't feel as sound as it might. Having said that, though, I liked enough about this movie that I do recommend it. I think it's an original. I know it's based off a book, as I've mentioned, but I think it's an original concept. I think the concept itself fits in pretty swimmingly with the themes that Bong has been known to cover and tackle for multiple decades now. And I also too, I really do love to, I didn't mention it a ton, but I do like the production design of this thing. Fiona Crumby is the one who did the
And
production
it
design.
was good. It was really good. Yeah.
This sort of like gloomy industrial look to this movie that I think really adds to it. It doesn't make it oppressive, but it does kind of give a little bit of a backdrop. And I also found the scenes with the creepers, particularly in the third act, in the middle of the snow, when it's like this endless onslaught, this stampede of creepers. I kind of found that there's a little bit of Mad Max energy there that I really did like, and it proves to me that like the visionary that Bong really is that like he can stage the hell out of these things,
Yeah.
tell these stories that are really about the human condition in these epic ways. This one isn't as great of a stew as some of his other movies, like Okja. I think handles it a little bit better. Obviously, there's Parasite, which is like genre in terms of genre, like almost unclassifiable in terms of what that movie ultimately is. That's almost a movie where the themes of it overtake the concept of genre. I do like this one. I think I'll be interested. This will be one I'll be interested to rewatch and kind of redigest in a way. But I recognize its shortcomings while at the same time saying I had a lot of fun with the unpredictability of it all and sort of the marriage of Bong's common themes in movies. So for me, it pushed over the edge for me. I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I did enjoy this quite a bit. What
Okay.
say you, Dom?
I think that this film will not age well, just in general and within Bong Joon-ho's like filmography.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
saw that.
really don't, at least compared to his his two most well-known works, which is of course Parasite and Snowpiercer. There's a weirdness to definitely Parasite in how it handled not the message. The message is clear as day in probably all of his films, but how he how he conducts a film, with the editing, the cinematography, the pacing, the tension. There was no tension in Mickey 17, I feel like. Obviously there was, but it 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 did not come together for me. But there is that weirdness in Snowpiercer, like, holy shit, this concept is crazy. Parasite, such a simple premise, but it weaves into the depths of like sanity and hell for these two families. It is insane. It's borderline like a horror movie. I
Yeah.
can see some interpretations for it. Really. I really do. But then you have Mickey 17, and it's like it has the look of Star Wars's Andor with like very little of its hard-hitting message. And that's a shame that I have to compare these two movies. Those two works. They should not be in the same league as each other. And I consider Andor one of the best things that come from Star Wars in the past like 15 years. But if not more. And it was, for me, it was pretty damn disappointing. Did I have my hopes up? I think I kind of did. Even with the, what, 6, 7 year gap between his two films, I think that will help his case is that he was out of the public eye, but it all comes back because Parasite was such a phenomenon, and rightly so. And I can see the argument that maybe I'm being unfair comparing this work and his last work. I can see that. But even then, even when I take that into account, it does not, it really does not come together. It's it feels like a very simplified science fiction movie that even on its own merits does not have the same sauce, the same juice, the same kind of weirdness, that oomph that I would think from Bong Joon-ho. If this was, and I'll wrap up. If this was a more straightforward film, I think I could have tolerated it a lot more. But even then, it struggles with its own plodding along, with that over narration, with all of these yeah, heavy-handedness, but even then, I can't take some of the heavy-handedness he's trying to do, as I explained earlier. So for that, I swear to God, I flirted with 1.5 at one point.
Oh,
But
dude.
but but what came back around was when he introduced Robert Pattinson a second time, playing another character. I'm like, okay, this is fantastic acting, and I very much appreciate it. This comes out to a two out of four for me.
All across the board with Mickey 17 here. I love it. I was excited to review this for a reason. It went through a couple of release date changes. We had to keep up with it on the schedule, but I knew it was going to lead to a good conversation either way. So I appreciate you guys for checking it out. Next week, I called an audible because it is coming on Hulu on the 17th. It is Anora. We still down to review that next week?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to. You hyped me up. Yeah, you.
Last week for sure. I was disappointed after seeing it. I was very disappointed that we didn't cover it on the show, and I blame. I mean, it's partly my fault because we didn't get it until like the 11th hour out here in Eastern Iowa. We didn't get it, unfortunately. So
Mm,
I'm excited to talk with you guys about this movie too because I think it's a genuine crowd pleaser. I'm so happy it won Best Picture, and I think you guys are gonna really enjoy this one. So I'm looking
yeah.
forward to our discussion. And then the week after, we got The Day the Earth Blew Up, the Looney Tunes movie. So, which I'm excited for. That comes out this weekend as well. So we will touch base on Anora, the Best Picture winner at this year's Academy Awards, next week on the show, kind of doubling back to review this movie. And I don't know if this had to be worked out beforehand and stuff like that, but it's like, God damn it, I don't know. I know partly why they do it, but it's like, this damn thing should have been ready to go on Hulu the day after the Oscars.
Yeah.
This thing,
Thank you.
regardless as if it won or not, it should have been good to go the day after the Oscars. I don't care if it was a week and a half or 2 weeks later. The culture moves too quickly. The culture moves too quickly. This needed to be on streaming or available to stream.
What was the original like release frame?
The original release frame, I believe, was November, I want to say.
Okay.
Actually came out October 18th, and it expanded over the several couple of weeks. And then we got it in December-ish, January, I want to say. Then the Oscar nominations came out, so then it stayed in theaters longer, and it got all the way up to number 7 at the box office this weekend too, because it was put back in 1,500 theaters.
Yeah. I almost went to go see it because AMC did the favorite films, which means you can go see it for $5.
Mm,
Yeah, so it got
okay.
put back into theaters too. So it's kind of had Sean Baker got his wish. It's had a healthy theatrical cycle, this thing for sure. Hasn't made a ton of money, but I mean, honestly, now that I look at it, about $50 million for a drama of this caliber is pretty damn good
Mhm.
in this day and age. We will tackle Anora next week, though. It starts streaming on Hulu on March 17th. St. Patrick's Day is this coming Saturday, Sunday, I think. One of those
Monday.
days.
I think
Monday.
it's
Oh, it's Monday. Oh,
Monday.
it's Monday. Oh, that's gonna be a fun hangover Monday for most
Yeah, I
of
was
Chicago.
gonna say that's gonna be fun on Tuesday.
That's gonna be a hangover Monday if there ever was one for a lot of people. Until then, though, for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.